Hey guys, what's up? This is LJS here, and today I'm back with a deck profile that many of you have probably been waiting for a long time. Sorry for this huge delay. As I mentioned, I've been really busy with work. I don't have much time to actually do deck profiles and all that. So, anyways, here I am, and today's deck profile will be on the Blaster Joker. Oh yeah, and it's Legion Rare as well. So yeah, a lot of you guys will sort of quite excited to see me to do some Link Joker deck profiles. I have tried out different builds with Blaster Joker and Venom Dancer as well, and all other Link Joker, and I have some decks built, but I never really get to test it out. But so far, this is the only deck I think it's one of the better decks from set 17. And I probably won't be able to do deck profiles for the other decks because I don't have time. But anyways, here I have this deck for Blaster Joker, and I would say that this deck build is probably different from what most people will do, and honestly, I think this is probably the better build. But anyways, let's just get to the deck profile, shall we? And Link, as you guys know, Link Joker is my main clan. I love it because his art is awesome, and Blaster Joker's art is so awesome. I love him. Anyways, yeah, first let's go to the deck profile. I'll go through the deck list quickly first, then I'll explain the skills. So if you want to know the skills, you can continue watching, but if you only care about the deck profile, just watch until then and you can leave, I guess. So first of all, grade 3s. This is very different from most decks, but I only run 2 Blaster Jokers, okay? So Blaster Joker is one of those cards that I think was overhyped. His skill is it can be quite disruptive and interesting, but it's not really a sustainable card. It's not really a sustainable skill, and it's not really a skill that you will use non-stop. So he is, I guess, one of those first Legion that's able to retire the mate. But I'll go to the skills later on. So I only run 2 because, if you know, his skill is really expensive, and it's not, as I mentioned, it's not sustainable. So you don't really want to use him that early in the game. So yeah, so just 2 copies of him. Normally people run 4, but I only run 2. Next, I run 2 copies of Garnet Star Dragon. So as most builds would go is 4 Blaster Jokers and 4 Garnet Star. But I'm taking it differently. I'll be running 2 Blaster Joker and 2 Garnet Star. So Garnet Star is one of those, is the trial deck Legion, and he is a simple once-off skill where when he Legions, the skill activates. Next, for the grade 3s, this is the other grade 3 I'll be running, which I think is a better choice, is 4 Dark Zodiacs. So most Blaster Joker decks will be 4, and that's it. And the 2 main grade 3s will be these 2. But for me personally, I would think that these 2 grade 3s will be your main grade 3s because early to mid game, you want to control the pace of the game. Meaning you want to control your opponent's field, you want to lock them up such that their field is maintained. Blaster Joker, in one hand, is very expensive, and it only locks 5 regards, but for 1 turn only, and there's no form of control you can obtain. Whereas Garnet Star locks are really cheap, and the Dark Zodiac also locks for relatively cheap, and you can Omega lock as well, maintaining control of the pace of the game. So Link Joker, I would say, mainly focuses on controlling the game's pace. Now, only late game do you ride into Blaster Joker because he's freaking expensive, and late game you can disrupt your opponent by destroying their legions. But of course, it all depends on how the game goes. But yeah, so that's the grade 3 lineup. A bit strange, I agree, not conventional. But anyway, next go for the grade 2s. Run 4 Photons, all Legion Rares, because if you don't go Legion Rare, you go home. Yeah, go home. So I'll run 4 Photons because Photon is the mate of Blaster Joker. Blaster Joker mate, as well as the mate of Photon. Yes, the art is different, but it still works. Okay, so for those of you who think you must have the same art, please, no, you don't need the same art. So yeah, so that's 4 Photon. Number 1, he's the mate. I run 4 because he's the mate. And number 2, his skill is really good. So he's a staple in Link Joker decks, I would say. Next, I run 4 of the Astro Reaper. So he is the mate of your Dark Zodiac. number 1, he's the mate of your Dark Zodiac, and that's why I run 4. And number 2, you run maximum copies of him and him to activate Dark Zodiac's secondary skill to lock units. So you want to be, so as Link Joker, it's all about locking and all about control. So you want to, in early, mid game, control your opponent's field by locking with all these cards. Blaster Joker comes as a late game push and a late game sort of disruption options because he's very expensive to use his skill. So yeah. Next, run 2 Dilatons. You don't need many Dilatons because Dilaton is there to fetch for Blaster Joker if you haven't drawn him already, and it helps you pace your game better because Dilaton he's essentially a free +1 to get into Blaster Joker, and you don't need to run many of him because 2 is enough because you only have 2 Blaster Jokers anyways, and chances are you probably only just draw one of him. Next, I run 2 Colony Makers. So Colony Maker is useful to superior call grade 1s and useful grade 1s. So yeah, I run 2 because there isn't much space in the grade 2 lineup because these 2 are, I would say, you need run 4 each of them. So yeah. Next, for the grade 1s, you have your staple 4 Perfect Guards because Perfect Guards are Perfect Guards. And make sure you run Star-Vaders because this deck is somewhat Star-Vader dependent. So you want to run 4 Star-Vaders, Perfect Guard. The Deleter Perfect Guard can also be used, but since you need Star-Vaders, I would recommend running Star-Vader Perfect Guards. Next, run 4 of the... where's my other one? Oh, wait, no. Okay, run 3, sorry, 3. 3 Star-Vader Volt Line. So he is your pressure booster, allows you to obtain Omega Lock and control the game as well. I would like to run 4, but there isn't much space because I'm running other stuff in my deck as well. So 3 is probably sufficient enough because Dark Zodiac will be Omega Locking as well. So yeah. Next, I run 3 Lanternums. So Lanternum, he's a power gainer whenever you lock. So combo him with Blaster Joker because Blaster Joker can lock 5 rear guards. So if you lock 5 rear guards, he gains 10k. So yeah. And next, I run 2 Gunek. So Gunek is there because he's Soul Blast 2 and draw a card. So he allows you to free your soul because chances are he will be in your soul and you want more of him in a deck and drop zone so that you can Legion as well as you can use him. So Gunek is a good way to free your soul as well as draw a card. And lastly, I run 1 Mayoron because Mayoron is a specific support for Blaster Joker. But you only run 1 of him because you don't actually need him early game, and if you need him, you can always find him or her. Find her with Colony Maker. So next for the triggers, I run. Oops, my triggers are not arranged properly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You run 8 crits. And all of them of different art because I like all arts of Link Joker. So 8 crits. Then you run 4 draws. Also all different art because I like having different art. And 4 heals. Of course, heals, why not? Because you need heals. So yeah, so that is the trigger lineup. So now let's get to the skills of the card and let me explain roughly how this deck split. Oh yeah, I forgot I mentioned my starter. I play Star-vader Brave Fang. So now let's get to the skills, shall we? Let's get this focused. Okay, so Brave Fang's skill is basically when an attack hits a Vanguard, when this unit boosted, if your Vanguard is in Legion, put him in a soul. If you do, choose 2 of your opponent's rear guard and Omega Lock them. So he is useful early game for control. And as I mentioned, Link Joker is all about locking. And your Blaster Joker is not your, as I mentioned, Blaster Joker is not your main Vanguard to ride. It is Granite Star and Dark Zodiac. Those two units, those two Grade 3 Vanguard can lock 2 units. So he works well with them. So Brave Fang, whenever he boosts one of them, and it's Legion, if it hits a Vanguard, you can Omega Lock 2 cards to maintain field presence, field control, Omega Lock 2. So that's him. Run him. Let's run him. Next, let's go to the grade 3. So let's go to Blaster Joker. So Blaster Joker's skill is one of those that's like, whoa, people are like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. So, but it's quite expensive. So first skill, his main skill is Axe skill, Counter Blast 2, Soul Blast 2, and choose one of your Star-vader rear guards and lock it. As you see, Counter Blast 2, Soul Blast 2, and lock one of your Star-vader rear guards. And as you can see, Counter Blast 2 is pretty expensive. You can only probably use it only twice in a game. Realistically, you probably use it twice in a game, maximum. Soul Blast 2 also quite expensive because getting enough souls for his fuel is also not exactly that easy unless you keep riding over Legion units, then you can have enough soul. And lastly, you must lock one of your rear guards, meaning he loses a boost. No, typically you lock his booster. That's where Mayron comes in, which I'll explain later. But anyways, when you do that, lock all of your opponent's rear guards as well as retire your opponent's Legion mate. So yeah, so when you do that, you actually disrupt a lot of your opponent's ability to use skills. So yeah, pretty good. His second skill is you can put a card, choose a card with the same name as a unit of your Vanguard circle from your hand, put in a soul. If you do, okay, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can put him or Photon into the soul. If you do, he gains 1 crit. But normally you don't use his second skill because you want to rewrite him so that you have enough soul to use his first skill to Omega Lock. Actually, to what's it called? Absolute Lock and Absolute Break. So yeah, his skill is very expensive, but so I usually leave it for late game to disrupt opponent even more after you control the pace of the game. So next, the other grade 2-3 I run is Garnet Snapdragon. So his skill is when he performs Legion, perform Legion with Photon, you can lock one of your opponent's front row and back row rear guards. So yeah, so he's, as you can see, it's no cost. All you need to do is Legion and can lock. It's extremely cheap. And also he gains 2k when he attacks a Vanguard, so it's additional. So he in Legion he swings for 22, so you don't need to be boosted. And normally early game you want to ride him so that you can have cheap lock and you can have a cheap pressure with Brave Fang to Omega Lock those 2 rear guards and start controlling the pace of the game. So yeah, that's 2 of him. Next, Dark Zodiac. So I run 4 because he is one of he's your other main Vanguard. So but his skill is number 1. When he performs Legion, you can Counter Blast 1. If you do, Omega Lock all your opponent's rear guards. You perform Omega Lock. So any of your opponent's rear guard that's locked cannot be unlocked at the end of his next end phase. So his mate is this guy. So when you perform Legion, Counter Blast 1 and Omega Lock. Second skill is discard a card that has the same name as on your Vanguard circle. If you do, lock 2 cards. So you can use his secondary skill before or after Omega Locking. So if you perform Legion and you Omega Lock, and then you use his skill to discard and lock, those that are locked by his skill after this is still Omega Locked. Because Omega Lock works for any locked cards, whether it's before or after Omega Locking on that turn. Yeah. So let's say early game, you want to start controlling a field, controlling a pace. Don't be afraid to use his locking skill, even though you don't Legion. So you can just ride him, and then discard a copy of him, and then lock without performing Legion and Omega Locking. Or even if you have already Omega Lock in previous turns, don't need to be afraid to use his skill to lock again, because the whole point of Link Joker is to control your opponent's field by locking cards. So yeah. Next you have Photon. So Photon is your staple because 1, he's the mate, and number 2, his skill is really good. So when you call him, if your opponent has a lock card, lock another card. That's it. So extremely good. Just call, lock. But of course, your opponent needs to have a lock card already. So very useful for control, very useful for continuously locking your opponent and slowing the game down. Next, and also gaining advantage. Next, you have Astro Reaper. So Astro Reaper is the mate of Dark Zodiac. His skill is that when his attack hits a Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1. If you do, look at top 5 card of your deck and search for a card with the same name as a unit on your Vanguard circle. Typically, you don't use his skill because you usually discard him as his cost to lock because you want to maintain control of the field. But sometimes, depending on situation, it may be useful. Like there's once I wrote Photon and I called him. He hits. I Soul Blast 1 and I managed to search for another Photon. So in that case, it is useful because you get a free plus. And in that situation, I was able to get another photon in my hand, which is quite useful because I can lock another rear guard, which is so funny. But yeah. And yeah. Oh, and put the rest at the bottom. Oh yeah, and put the rest at the bottom of the deck in any order, so don't shuffle your deck. But typically, you keep him in your hand as a discard cost for Dark Zodiac because you want to lock your opponent. Next is Dilaton. So Dilaton's skill is when he is called to rearguard circle, if your Vanguard is Legion and your opponent has 2 or more lock cards, you can search your deck for 1 card named Blaster Joker and put it in your hand, and then shuffle your deck. So he is in there to increase your chances. So he's there to guarantee getting him in your hand. So so that you are ready to use him and wreak havoc with Blaster Joker. Next is Colony Maker. So Colony Maker's skill is when she is called in rearguard circle, if your opponent has a locked card, you can search your deck for a grade 1 or less card with Star-vader in its card name, call it to rearguard circle, and shuffle your deck. So she is useful to get a free plus. So use her to search for maybe Mayron if you are ready to use Mayron for Blaster Joker, or search for him to put pressure to Omega Lock, or him to get power when you lock something. So this is quite versatile. So it is very useful card. Run 2. I only run 2 because I don't have enough space, but I would prefer running more. Next, Perfect Guard is Perfect Guard's skill. Next would be Vote Line. So Vote Line's skill is that when he boosts and the attack hits a Vanguard, you can then choose one of your opponent's rear guards that is locked and Omega Lock it. So he's also very useful when working with cards that lock, like for example him, or you lock from him. So basically he puts pressure to Omega Lock cards, which is good because when you Omega Lock, you control your opponent's field and you can save on defense as well. So their skills are similar, but you need to put him in the soul. Him, you can lock 1, Omega Lock 1. That's pretty good. Next, you have Lanthanum. So Lanthanum's skill is that whenever your opponent's rear guard is locked due to an effect from every card, he gains 2k. So Omega locked cards does not count, or cards that were locked before you call him does not count as well. So make sure you call him before you lock things. If not, the power boost is wasted. Yeah. Next, you have Gunek. So Gunek is your on-call, so plus 2 draw a card. So he's in there because he's not a Star-vader, but he's useful because you want to free your soul and you can filter your deck to draw cards, essentially. And next, you have Mayron. So Mayron's skill is rest this unit. If your Vanguard is in Legion, choose a card named Star-vader Blaster Joker on your Vanguard circle, and he gains 10k. So he is only there for Blaster Joker. So Blaster Joker's skill, as I mentioned, as I discussed earlier, it is his skill requires you to count plus 2, so plus 2 and lock a Star-vader. So before that, what you do is you rest. Okay, so normally you call him behind Blaster Joker as a Vanguard, rest him, give him 10k, use his skill, count plus 2, so plus 2 and lock him. Right away, he's using for 30k, and you don't waste a boosted power. So you only run out of him because you only need 1. So yeah, so this has been my Blaster Joker deck profile. It is not a conventional deck profile, conventional deck list of Blaster Joker you see, but I think that this is the method that works. If you see one of my matches with Mega Colony, you can see how the game of Link Joker should be. It's all about controlling your opponent, locking your opponent down, and then slowly gain advantage, and then finally you push with Blaster Joker by hopefully messing with their field, destroying their Legion and all that. But of course, Link Joker is not exactly the best clan out there compared to like restanding Vanguard like Thing Savers and Perdition Dragons and all that stuff. But this is a pretty fun deck, and I hope you guys understand my deck profile, and I hope you guys liked it. So thumbs up if you like my video, and subscribe if you like my content. And thank you guys so much for watching. And this has been LJS, and I'll see you guys next time.